on regular radio as well. So, look, you can check this out in one of our old podcasts. We talk about this with Eddie. I forgot which number it is. It's many years ago. But check that out. But what do you say, Dave?
What do I say about Eddie Trunk that I haven't said before?
Yeah.
Well, the guy's entitled to his opinion. What can I tell you? He's going to throw shade on 1984 for having keyboards for the rest of his life. What can I tell you? Guy's entitled to his opinion. You can't take too much away from him because he's done so much for hard rock and heavy metal.
He has. Letter number 12 comes from Jeff Shrewsbury, and he says, in Live Without a Net, Sammy gets a little tongue-twisted and mispronounces Alex's name as Alex Bocephus Van. He also noted that Sammy paints up a pair of women's shoes during Best of Both Worlds. And he wanted to note that he read in Sammy's book that Amnesty is Granted was intended to be used as a Van Halen tune. I don't recall which bootleg, but I know there is one where Sammy performs Amnesty is Granted during a Van Halen tour as his solo part of the concert. Jeff Shrewsbury. Well, yes, I understand that. Sammy totally got tongue-tied, and I think they left it in because it was kind of goofy the way he messed up. They were calling Alex Bocephus because Alex was calling when he gets crazy that he goes into Bocephus mode, and Bocephus is the nickname of Hank Williams Jr. If you remember in the Van Halen MTV Unleashed special, he's screaming Bocephus rules and rules all. It's shouted by him, and he's putting on a Bocephus hat, and there's this whole thing with Bocephus, oh my god. And Bocephus, believe it or not, was a nickname that Hank Williams Jr. got from his dad, who named him after the ventriloquist from Rod Bransfield's Dummy from the Grand Ole Opry. He was named Bocephus. And the song My Name is Bocephus was a hit in 1986 at the time when 5150 was out and they were touring behind it. And now, in regards to Sammy Hagar and Amnesty is Granted during his solo segment, I always thought that was a waste of time during the Van Halen show. That Sammy solo was always so long and really just killed the momentum of every show. No one should be doing a solo but Eddie Van Halen and maybe a little bit of Alex, but he played that over and over. And yeah, he played that for years before he recorded it. I don't think he presented it to the band, to be honest with you, because Eddie didn't write the music. It's very much a Sammy Hagar solo song, and I can't imagine that Sammy would have presented the music to Ed, and Ed would have gone along with that. In regards to the women's shoes, that's another little pet peeve of mine. I don't know if you guys remember, but Sammy used to, oh my God, be dicking around with every piece of crap someone threw on stage during a show he used to fuck with. It was all out of nervousness, in my opinion, and his way to, entertain the crowd as a frontman, because he didn't really do all the Dave stuff, which make the jokes, or dance, or high kick, or jumps, and stuff like that. He was sort of the anti-Dave, so I'm not so sure he was so comfortable in that role up there. I found, looking back, watching a Live Without a Net and some of the Unleashed special, that Sammy was very, 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 very nervous on stage a little bit, and he sang great and he performed great, but he was definitely nervous, and it's kind of a miracle that they pulled the whole thing off. What do you think?
He might have been nervous, but I don't know. I mean, he had been performing live for years.
Yeah, so, I'm not talking about performing live. He's replacing David Lee Roth. That's not the same thing.
No, that's true. That's true. But I don't know. I don't think he had a problem with that. I think he was quite comfortable replacing him and letting everyone know he was doing just fine in the role. So okay. I don't think that was an issue. And yeah, he made a flub during a live show. I mean, like everyone makes flubs during shows. I don't see what the big deal is, quite frankly.
Yeah, no big deal. But it is funny that they left it in.
Well, maybe they didn't even notice. Who knows?
They probably just thought it was cute. Anyway, Letter number 13 comes from Chinatown Chad Elliott from Bristol, England, Dave. And he says here in his question, on your interview with Sash Jordan, which I absolutely loved, did anyone else think she and Alex Van Halen were totally sleeping together? It was something about the way she talked about him, that she hung out with them for so long. Plus, he contacted her before he got remarried. And this blew my mind, this question, Dave, from Chad Elliott. And I can't believe it. Shit, Chad, I never thought about that. But man, I don't know. Looking back, that could really well be. I do remember her constantly playing up Alex and mentioning Alex in sort of a different way than she was talking about Eddie. I think that's a really good call. What do you think about that, Dave?
Well, maybe. I don't... I don't know. I mean, anything's possible, but, until Sass confirms.
Well, we have to get Sass back on and ask her that question.
I think it's a interesting theory, and I'll just leave it at that.
All right, that's true. Letter number 14 comes from Johnny Booth, and he says, I recently revisited one of my less frequently played Van Halen albums, and I tend to have a different opinion for them. This happened recently when I was listening to OU812, and I especially found myself enjoying Sucker in a Three-Piece. Do you all ever have moments like this? If so, I'd like to hear yours. My second question is, does anyone know if there's an isolated track of the spoken words to the background of The Inside from 5150? I've tried looking, but I found nothing. Thanks always, stay frosty, Johnny Booth. Well, Johnny, I love rediscovering stuff on old Van Halen albums for sure. Sucker in a Three-Piece is a fiesta of Eddie Van Halen guitar for sure. However, I will always say this. Sammy Hagar is lazy as fuck on that song. I mean, his lyrics are for nothing. I mean, give me 20 minutes and I could give you better lyrics than that. I mean, it was unbelievable. My suggestion for people, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, is start digging into Balance and Van Halen 3. There are some lost gems in there that I think that people could rediscover, even parts to songs. I urge all of our listeners to rediscover things like that. OU812 is another one. There's lots of good stuff on there. Some more unknown tracks that people paid attention to. However, for me, that happened recently with Push Comes to Shove on Fair Warning. Now, that used to be my least favorite track on Fair Warning, but Mr. Dweezil Zappa, on his podcast, Running with the Dweezil, went into an incredible deep soliloquy about Push Comes to Shove, and wow, did he really spark my interest for this track, and I listened to it, and now I freaking love that song, and I take it from a whole different perspective. He blew my mind with that. And also, to answer your last question regarding The Inside, for years I have been looking for an isolated vocal track for a lot of the background things. If you listen, there's a lot of little hidden jokes in there. Many of them are about Dave, by the way, and they're buried in there. And I'm wondering if Warner Brothers buried them in there because they don't want to get Dave upset. But there's a lot of poking fun at David Lee Roth on that. What do you think of these, Dave?
I would love to know what they're saying in that song.
Yeah.
So if anybody has the complete legible lyrics to that, please send them to the podcast.
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
Because that was one of those things, I was rewinding the cassette a lot on my headphones trying to figure out what they were saying on that.
That's right. And here we are at the last letter of the night. I think Dave should be, taking me out for dinner now that I shortened up this mailbag nice and tight for him because he's ready to go to bed.
You did.
You see how I did that? You see how I did that?
Yeah, no.
Letter number 15 comes from Vinny Pasculi, Dave, and he says, if you had a choice of any outtakes or unreleased songs from any DLR era album, what would it be? What do you think of the unreleased track Act Like It Hurts? Thank you and congratulations on 5 great years. Okay, Vin. Well, I want to hear the post-1984 demos for sure. I want to know how much Eat Thy Neighbor actually exists and what Dave did with the music that Eddie gave him in 1985. I want to hear the demos and the completed songs from the David Lee Roth 2000 to 2001 era with the band, for sure. As I've said a million times, I want to hear the finished cover of In the Midnight Hour, which was taken off 1984. I want to hear that for sure. And I don't think the band had many leftovers from other sessions, but obviously I love to hear them all. But those are ones that I know exist, and I'd love to hear. The song Act Like It Hurts. Here's a clip. A cool jam. You really hear Mike in the mix, which I enjoy. The breakdown part was used elsewhere, I think. Part of it sounds like Light Up the Sky. That little breakdown about 1 minute and 25 seconds in sounds a little like a breakdown in Light Up the Sky. But it doesn't seem like this is a cohesive song for lyrics and vocals. It just does seem more like a jam. What do you think, Dave?
It does seem like a jam. I like the song a lot. I think it's great. It's bass heavy, which I just think is the version of the mix that came out, so you get to hear a lot of Mike. I think some people heard, this is a stretch, admittedly, before I say this, but I think there were some people who said it was the inspiration for Honey Sweetie Baby Doll on A Different Kind of Truth. I'm like, I think that's a bit much, but that's just my opinion. But I love that song. I think it's one of their better instrumental jams out there as far as lost tracks.
Excellent. Well, that wraps up the mailbag segment. And we are on to our deep dive discussion about Wolf Van Halen's debut album, Mammoth WVH, self-titled. It dropped finally after 3 years. Dave and I talk about every one of the 14 tracks and our opinions all on it and our background, facts, and everything in regards to that album, followed by our interview with photographer Neil Zlozower. This is a throwback interview that I did that I've been saving, and I want you guys to enjoy it right now. It's an interview with Neil. He talks about his time with Van Halen, and that is all coming up next. Take a listen.
I think we're just a from the heart rock and roll band, you know. We always try to pigeonhole you, you know.
Now that there's speed metal and trash metal and all that, it's not quite so humiliating. That's stupid. But you know what I mean? It's like you don't mind it as much. When that was like this outrageous, unthought of music, just trash, you know, what they call trash metal now, which I think is great, but I'm saying, but when heavy metal was considered like the unmusic thing, it was an insult, because this band is very musical. It's probably one of the most musical rock bands around, I think, you know.
It's the most musical band I've ever been in.
Hello, loyal listeners. Wanted to let you know about our new Patreon. If you like what we do and you have the means, drop us a donation to keep the podcast going. Go to patreon.com/DD Unchained. That's patreon.com/DDUNCHAINED. Doesn't have to be huge. Any size contributions are greatly appreciated. Those who contribute $40 or more will get the Unchained package. Trust me, it's worth it. Contribute $65 or more and get the Romeo Delight package, which is Unchained plus more. And $95 scores you the Top Jimmy package, which is the kitchen sink. If you're a Van Halen hardcore and listen to this cast, this is stuff you'll appreciate. It's ear candy. Go to patreon.com/DD Unchained. Email your contact information to ddunchainedpodcast@gmail.com. What is understood need not be discussed.
Hi, it's Mickey Dolenz here, and you're listening to Dave and Dave Unchained.
Martin Popoff here. Hope you're enjoying this latest episode of Dave and Dave Unchained, the Wise Swamis on all things VH. Just wanted to remind you that at martinpopoff.com, I've got 2 Van Halen books that I wrote. One is Van Halen, a visual biography, which is basically a big hardcover coffee table book, 400 images, 20,000 word detailed timeline. And the other one is called Unchained, a Van Halen user manual. It's the sort of 120,000 word, very academic, a lot of crazy chapters, a lot of trivia, wordy book that I did on Van Halen. So yes, go to martinpopoff.com. I sign and ship those out of my office here in Toronto. There's PayPal buttons for the US, international, and Canada. Again, Van Halen, a visual biography, and Unchained, a Van Halen user manual. Back to Dave and Dave.
If you would like to send us a letter asking a question or making a statement or whatever you'd like to say, you can send it to ddunchainedpodcast@gmail.com.
A little difficult to tell who's even in the band now. When I was up there, I used to jam with a guitar player and a drummer, and now I'm jamming with therapists and psychics and wives and household pets.
Well, Dave, it's been 3 years. 3 long years, and it's hard to believe what we are finally here at Wolfgang Van Halen's debut album, self-titled after his band Mammoth WVH. This is an album we've been waiting for, tracking, reporting for 3 years. And the results well, it doesn't disappoint, and it is well worth the wait, that's for sure. And Wolf has told us that this album is a real blend of influences, really has hard rock roots, but also touches of emo and pop in there, grunge as well. Now, these morons out there, and I don't know who these people are, but